Transportation for City of Des Moines meetings can be scheduled to and from DART Central Station at 620 Cherry Street. To reserve your route, please call DART on-call scheduling at 283-8136. Calls for trips will be accepted up until 5 p.m. of the day prior to the meeting. Please be sure to mention in your request that you require transportation for the City of Des Moines meetings at this location. This notice is intended to comply with accessibility requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So it looks like we do have a quorum. Approval of minutes. Is there any action on our November
7.
Thank you.
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor of approval of the November 7th Plan and Zoning Commission meeting minutes, please signify by raising your hand. All right. Are there any abstentions? And any objections? Thank you. Seeing none, the minutes are approved. All right, at this time, we will go through the consent agenda as is published. Item number 1 is a city-initiated request to vacate segments of the alley right-of-way adjoining property at 100 East 2nd to allow the police department to restrict public access. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes us to pull this item from the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, is there anyone on the commission that wishes to hear this item tonight? Seeing none, item number 1 will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 2 is a city-initiated request to vacate an irregular parcel of access right-of-way from East Martin Luther King Parkway, from the East Martin Luther King Parkway project in the vicinity of 1422 Scott Avenue, adjoining Southeast 14th Street, to assemble with adjoining city-owned property for redevelopment. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes us to pull this item from the consent agenda tonight? All right, seeing none, is there anyone on the commission that wishes to hear this item? Okay.
Why need to set my objection now, or is that
for item number 2? Then you would wish us to pull this so you can state your objection. All right, we'll pull item number 2 from consent to the public hearing. Item number 3 is a city-initiated request to vacate a segment of East 15th from East Martin Luther King Parkway to East Market in the vicinity of 200 Southeast 15th Street to assemble with adjoining city-owned property for redevelopment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to hear this item? So both of these?
Just the latter one, the second one. So just the third one.
So
What was that?
He doesn't object to item 2. He only objects
okay,
to item 3.
so item number 2 can remain on consent. That's not the item you wish to hear. Item number 3 is the item that you wish to hear. Okay. All right. Item number 4 is a request from Catholic Health Initiatives, also doing business as Mercy Medical Center, for review and approval of a proposed 6th amendment to the Mercy Medical Center PUD conceptual plan on property located in the vicinity of 1111 6th Avenue to allow for revision to the campus sign plan. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to hear this item? Okay, we'll pull that item from the consent. Item number 5 is a request from 1219 34th Street for review and approval of site plan 1291 34th Street under design guidelines for multiple family dwellings on property located at, is it 1219 or 1291 34th Street? There's 2. You have 1219 and we have 1291.
Yeah, I believe the middle one.
It's 1291?
Yep.
Okay. For the property located at 1291 34th Street to allow existing fraternity and sorority house to be converted to a 14-unit multiple-family dwelling. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to hear this item tonight? You do, sir? Okay, so we'll go back to consent.
Confirm it's 1219.
It is 19, yes.
It's 12 and 19.
Yeah, the name of the site plan is a typo.
Okay. And there's an individual who wishes to pull this item, so that goes to public hearing. Item number 6 is a request from Hope Industries for review and approval of the site plan Bethel Mission Parking Addition under design guidelines for extension of parking on property located at 1317, 1321, 1323, and 1325th 7th Street to allow development of a 28-space off-street parking lot for the Bethel Mission across the alley to the east. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to hear this item tonight? Have it pulled from consent. Seeing none, is there anyone on the commission who wants us to pull this item? Seeing none, item number 6. So, to review, oh, wait a minute. Item number 9, correct, is a request from Come and Go for review and approval of a site plan, Come and Go Store 0731, under design guidelines for MPC districts and under design guidelines for gas stations, convenience stores for property located at 3104 University to allow development of a 5,611 square foot gas station convenience store with a pump island canopy for 8 fueling stations. It is my understanding that the applicant agrees with the staff recommendations and this item
Yes.
could be pulled to consent.
Yeah.
Right.
Else is here.
Is the applicant with us tonight? And is that correct, that you agree with the staff recommendations? All right. So can we have a motion to move item number 9 to consent? Okay. All those in favor of moving item number 9 to our consent agenda, please raise your hand. Okay. So I think that's it for consent, correct? So the consent items tonight will be item number 1, item number 2, and item number 6, and item number 9. Yes, sir. You are here to hear item number 9? So item number 9 will stay on public hearing. Okay. So
You're in objection to item number 9? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So once again, in review for consent items tonight, there will be item number 1, item number 2, and item number 6. So all of those in favor of these consent items, please signify by raising your hand.
I'm confused.
Do you have a question?
Yeah. Could you please restate the consent public hearing, the consent item numbers? 1,
2.
3?
2.
Okay,
The
you got
gentleman
me
wishes to
confused.
hear 3, correct?
4?
No.
No,
6.
6.
Right.
1, 2, and 6.
Let me do it
I'm with
again.
you.
1, 2, and 6.
I missed one there. Thank you.
All right, so all those in favor of the consent items, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, are there any objections? Anyone need to abstain on any of those? Okay. So tonight, we will begin our public hearing. Oh, wait a minute. So for public hearing items tonight, we will have item number 3, item number 4, item number 5, item number 7, which is a request from Hubble Realty for review and approval of preliminary plat Grover Woods on the property and vicinity of 4500 Hubble to allow subdivision of the property into 84 single-family development lots. I am under the understanding that the applicant wishes to continue this item to December 5, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is the applicant with us tonight? right?
Yeah, I don't see anybody here.
They're not here, okay. So is there mo, thanks.
I'll move that we put this on December 5th agenda.
All right. All those in favor of moving item number 7 to our December 5th meeting, please signify by raising your hand. Okay. Were there any objections? Yes, I thought Jan did. All right, so item number 7 will be moved to our December 5th meeting. It's also my understanding that item number 10, which is request from Case, is that right? Request from Casey's for review and approval of property located at 3200 and 3212 Southwest 9th and 930 Park Avenue. The applicant wishes to move this item to continue to our December 19th meeting. Is the applicant with us today?
I spoke to a gentleman out in the hall that was here for that.
Okay,
I think you might have talked to the attorney that made the request.
okay, so he is in agreement to
Yeah,
move.
he's here.
I have no other direction.
Okay, so you're okay with December 19th?
I'm affiliated, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, you'll be heard on that day.
They requested
so-
it today. I
yeah,
talked with them on
yeah,
the phone.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have a written request if you need to see it.
Okay. So, thank you. So, item number 10, the motion is to continue this item to our December 19th meeting. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
I did.
Okay. Are there any objections? Seeing none, this item will move to December 19th. Okay? Thank you. And then finally, item number 12, or item number 11, I'm under the impression that this request from 2701 Ingersoll for review and approval of site plan Millig Retail Center under design guidelines for MPC districts on property located at 2701 Ingersoll to allow development for property with a 5,250 square foot commercial center. The applicant wishes to move this item to our December 19th meeting. Is the applicant with us? All right. Was that also a written request to move that item?
That was our recommendation of staff.
Okay. So is there a motion?
They're planning to resubmit a different layout and a different plan, so.
Okay.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Emily. All those in favor of moving item number 11, continuing that to our December 19th meeting, please signify by raising your hand. Okay. Are there any abstentions or objections? Seeing none. So, the public hearing items tonight are item number 3, item number 4, item number 5, item number 8, and item number 9. So we'll begin with item number 3. That is the city-initiated request to vacate a segment of East 15th on East Martin Luther King Parkway.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the commission, this request was initiated by our city real estate division. They're working to assemble property. I'm going to get this zoomed out for you here. If I can. They're looking to assemble property in the vicinity of Southeast 14, south of Market Street, all the way over to Southeast 18th, but there's an intervening segment of East 15th right away. A portion of that has been vacated previously in previous vacation when the railroad was decommissioned in that. So it's actually kind of two little pieces at this point in time. Staff is recommending approval of this. This map would actually be adjusted slightly at the bottom as well to be even with this stub That would ultimately be the entrance into this site, but there's also signal equipment there for the traffic signal. You can see it right out the window. We did get the objection I've passed around from the adjoining property owner. It might be hard to see here, but there's a strip right here. And this piece is north of that is the railroad, the city, and then the railroad has the area in Market Street. So the argument, I think, of the objection is that they would be landlocked if this piece was vacated, these pieces. They also own the adjoining property to the west. East 14th Viaduct is, Southeast 14th Street Viaduct is a air rights easement for this, but does allow access through underneath. So it's not actually right away. Their parcel lines adjoin here beneath the viaduct. They would have land passage through their own property to the west. And I apologize, I'm not able to zoom out and show you, but there's adjoining right away to the west that they would have land passage to if this were to be vacated. So real estate's maintaining their recommendation or their application to proceed with this vacation. But it's been pulled off, so you're going to hear from the adjoining landowner to that regard. The intention is to actually convey this all for a redevelopment parcel, so that could certainly be a recommendation of the commission, but that has not been requested or intended.
Any other questions for Eric?
So what is redevelopment? I guess I'm trying to figure out, you're saying that you couldn't do anything other than pavement or rail on this site. So what is the thinking as far, I see, just there. I
On
got
the
it.
right of way.
Yep, I see.
The right of way allows it currently by right through the franchise arrangements of the right of way. But once it's vacated, then we have to reserve easements to allow that utility to stay in place.
Do you know if that water line serves anything right now?
My understanding is Ankeny serves Ankeny. So that's what's been reported by the Des Moines Water Works.
The city of Ankeny.
So it's a feeder main. It's not a main that allows individual services to tap. It carries water for.
Would not be
a
easily
distance.
moved.
No, it would not be easily moved.
Okay.
Any other questions for Eric? All right, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this recommendation? Seeing none, you have concerns or objections, please come up and state your name.
Please sign in if you're concerned. You can wait until you're done speaking, but before you leave the chamber, please sign. That's right at the end of the table.
Hello, my name is Tucker Sindlinger. I represent Hawkeye Land Company, who owns this northwestern parcel that is landlocked. I have not received anything from anybody about going under Southeast 14th Street, as I don't understand anything from the city about any of this project. I think it's pretty self-evident. There is a road, that's our public access to our property, our parcel, and it's being vacated, and frankly, I'm not exactly sure if there is any access underneath Southeast 14th Street. The city hasn't given me any information on this at all. I'd like to see a map of what they're proposing.
What's going to happen here today?
So where did this correspondence come from?
I'd like to see where our access, this is our
Eric,
access to our parcel, and I haven't seen any.
Okay.
so Eric spoke today with Phil Wagman, our real estate division manager at the city. And as Eric stated, Mr. Wagman stated that it's only air rights that we have over for Southeast 14th, over both of those properties. So the two lot lines do abut. There's no right-of-way intervening for 14th Street. It's just air rights over the two properties that you own.
I'd like that, but there's a city's talking about the access to the west, and I don't know where our access is. That they're talking about we have access.
Unless we, I don't have a bigger map to.
Can you, Eric, could you pull up the city maps page?
What are the, I'm not from Des Moines, I'm from Cedar Rapids. What are the qualifications for vacating a right-of-way for the city of Des Moines? Because I've been working on a project in Cedar Rapids for 2 years, and I've been told that if I don't have the consent of every single adjoining landowner, it's not getting vacated. So I don't know what your policies are, I don't know what your rules are, but
We don't require consent of every property owner to vacate a right-of-way
Okay.
in the city of Des Moines. So that would be a decision of our council. The general test is whether or not it's needed for a public purpose, and so that's what the hearing about is for tonight. So certainly if you truly don't have any access from any other source, then that would be a concern.
okay.
But it's been brought to our attention that our real estate division has indicated that there is access via the underpass going under the overpass of Southeast 14th.
Okay, and
Try to pull
that
that
information has not been relayed to me in any fashion.
Yeah. And I believe you called today with your concern about this, so we did check. Eric, was that correct?
No, I didn't.
I got the written communications.
Okay.
I haven't made any contact with them.
What is this site being redeveloped for? What's the proposal? The redevelopment of this access? I haven't been made aware of that either.
The land's being assembled for industrial redevelopment, they would have access to rail. So
Okay.
there isn't a specific plan approved. Reviewed or-
Okay.
The city's trying to convey property for redevelopment.
Eric, can you go to the Polk County Assessor photos, maybe? Maybe
No,
that would help?
I've got it open, I'm just gonna.
You have it,
When I get
Jack?
ready, I'll tell Tyler.
Okay.
You have it?
Yeah, it's kind of small.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. I think it is. Is that what this is for?
Eric, you want it on my phone? And you can,
Well, I have to show a layer that shows the city-owned assets. I don't think the county's gonna reveal that. Does that come up now?
there you go.
Okay, so the piece that's in question is here, this segment and this segment. The land that's owned by the gentleman, that's represented by the gentleman at the podium is this piece right here. And then it abuts another parcel that they own right here. There's the property line right under the viaduct. And then this property abuts right away to the west, which is right here. So Phil Wagaman, the real estate manager, has indicated that they would have land passage still through this piece of right of way if it were developed.
Could you zoom out so we can see what?
That way.
So
Okay.
it'd be these two parcels that are contiguous that would still have land.
What street does that? So that you're telling me there's a street that is here that's connecting all this together? I'm not following where because there's a public street right here where there's a vacate, so we can go right to our parcel. And now you're saying I've got to.
This is not a developed street at all.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's a
It's a
right
right
of
of way,
way that's
same as this.
correct. So, and what does that connect to it? Is there a street there?
Well, King is right down there.
I'm
It's
talking
all
about the
right of way.
public,
It's the
public
same-
access
it's the
to our
same-
street that would make our parcel here much commercially less viable for any
It's the
type of
same scenario.
redevelopment.
It's right of way right here that's not developed, just like on this
I
property.
know, but you can turn right off that property or off that road and go right up to our property. And now you're saying, no, you got to go under the interstate or whatever this road is, then you got to come west to go, and I'm just not, how are we going to access our
Yeah,
parcel?
well, none of it's developed access right now, so.
So theoretically, we could still access our parcel through this because it's not dedicated for any other redevelopment purposes
You could
right now.
access, these two parcels would access.
I haven't been given any information on this western parcel. All I've been told about is this parcel right here.
We haven't given anybody any information.
Okay, because that's what's, so I don't know why we're vacating this with the objection of the landowner that's adjacent, because we've been dealing with this.
That would be up to the council to vacate.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, this parcel currently has no developed land passage to any developed public street. In fact, right now, this is not right away here. So right now, this would be.
But you're going to put a building there.
I'm not sure about buildings, but
Okay.
this would still be, right now, there's land passage for this parcel.
We have easement rights over the railroad here. We have no access to Union Pacific.
This is public right away too, so.
So Eric,
That's not a
is
public
there a
road.
continuous public right-of-way from the north?
Yeah, neither is this.
Eric,
What's that?
it would appear there's continuous public right-of-way from a paved street, which is Vine Street to the north. Again, undeveloped from Vine Street, is that,
Not touching
Topography
his
there?
parcel, there's another intervening parcel right here.
but Eric, the right-of-way, is it being vacated all the way to the railroad?
The right of way right now is being requested is to right here.
Okay, thank
But
you.
that it does not actually have a common boundary with this parcel that he's speaking of.
Okay, thank you.
But again, it's not developed and it doesn't have access through any developed street.
So if we sold our parcel to the west, then what?
Screw yourself.
Then you'd be cutting off your ability to get to that right of way to the west.
I would assume you'd want to convey any property with an easement across the property to maintain an access to this one, if this right-of-way wasn't there.
Madam Chair, is this something that the Realty Department or someone else should figure out with the property owner so we can continue our discussions on other items?
So the real estate division has initiated this, has put this on. It's the commission's charge to determine is it necessary for public purpose, and then it would go to the council for decision. So I don't think, if there was negotiations, it would be at the point when the council would decide if there was conveyance of it, or the real estate's already made the determination that they've made. So I think they're waiting for a recommendation to the council.
Eric, but if the commission wanted additional information from the real estate division, they could continue it and ask real estate division to be present.
Ask for additional information from the real estate division.
Madam Chair, the property owner representative has asked some good questions. He's unclear about what all of this means for the property. I think it's appropriate for more information to come before the commission, so I move to continue this item until the real estate division has an opportunity.
Close the hearing first, right?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so first I need to ask, is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this item that's in the audience? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Go ahead. So you can make your motion.
I'll repeat
now.
my motion then if there's no other discussion.
Is there discussion, Jack?
Can I ask a question first? Can you move the map so that we can see what's it going to be? What? Okay. Mike, did you say there is paved access at this moment to any of this property owned by Hawkeye Land Company?
No, it does
I don't
not.
see any.
There is not from east or west.
So you can hike in there, or you can bungee cord off the bridge, but otherwise you have no,
We wouldn't recommend bungee cording off the bridge, but
no wheeled
they
access.
they have public right-of-way abutting their property, and their properties adjoin each other, so they both parcels do have physical adjacency to a public right-of-way, regardless of whether this right-of-way is vacated.
And I've had complaints with the city of Des Moines with the homeless population, and I had someone from the city drive me across down the Union Pacific, back and forth, and it's not easy to get to, and that's our easiest venue way to get there right there.
So, Will, your motion was to continue the item and then ask for the real estate division to be present to provide more information?
Yes.
Recommendation is to, what time frame? December 5th, December 19th?
Might as well be December 5th.
Okay. So the motion on the floor is to move this, to continue this item to our December 5th meeting with the expectation that we'll have some information from our city real estate department. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Are there any objections? You got it. Any objections? Seeing none, we'll continue this item to the next meeting. So we have continued this item, so were you waiting to speak on this item? Okay, because we're continuing it to December next meeting. Okay. All right, so at this time we are moving to item number 4, and I'm going to give you the capable hands of Jan Freed.
She has to. She's.
Are you're off to Jack?
You can switch it back, Tyler, if you want.
Okay, so number 4, request from Catholic Health Initiatives, Iowa Corporation, represented by Sandra Swanson, for review and approval of a proposed 6th amendment to the Mercy Medical Center PUD conceptual plan on property located at the vicinity of 11116 Avenue to allow revision to the campus sign plan. So is the applicant here?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Madam Vice Chair, members of the commission. The subject property is a 38-acre campus of the Mercy Hospital Medical Center. The property owner is the Catholic Health Initiatives of Iowa Corporation. The gold boundary here includes all of the area. The original PUD was only included what's north of my hand, and then they added this little portion to the south with a later amendment. Their most recent formal amendment also included signage program update, which was actually still several years ago, and now they're coming back with a rebranding to their corporate Mercy One branding for their entire network. And as part of that, they're looking to do a new sign program, which would update the style and look of their signs, but also leaving a number of existing signs at the same time. So, and I'm going to just kind of show you quickly what's been submitted, but I'll let them cover what they're actually proposing to do. This is kind of highlighted in yellow. This is the taller type signs down in the bottom corner. So if you're looking at your packet, these signs are the largest version. One thing that's kind of the main point of our staff recommendation is that they're looking at kind of this little flag mount, which doesn't meet our freestanding overlay provisions. Because this is a PUD, the council can adopt an amendment that would waive the freestanding overlay provisions, but when staff reviews these, they are looking at them in the context of the entire city having the freestanding overlay in place. So The pink locations are these shorter signs, 8 foot tall, 6 foot taller. The blue, I think there's just the one. And then the green are the smallest. And they're essentially directional signage, but again, they're still carrying the branding, so they are determined the signage. I believe there's one situation where they're going to be moving in the interim a sign on the wall, on the west wall. Everything in the approved PUD as it currently sits includes the future addition of the tower on the south. But during the interim, before that gets built, they still do want signage to go on their building. So some of this is to allow some interim amount of signs, which may ultimately get removed at some point when the new tower is built. So I did want to point that out. Staff is recommending approval subject to 2 conditions. One of them is that any sign type 2, which is essentially these freestanding signs, right? All of these freestanding signs fall under that category. Identification signs, they'll have a minimum 2 foot tall opaque base, constructed of brick, stone, concrete block, or other durable matching material to the exterior of the hospital, and extends from grade to the bottom of the sign face across the entire width of the sign, which would make it meet the intent of our freestanding overlay. Now, 2 feet would only technically meet our freestanding overlay on an 8 foot sign or smaller, because it's 2 feet or 25%. Now, we're still suggesting in this that the 2 feet go with the tallest signs. So the 12 foot tall would also just have a 2 foot base, which would be less than the 25%. That would knock it down to 20. So then we are recommending number 2, that any type 2, sign type 2 freestanding identification sign within 25 feet of a front lot line on a public street, basically, not exceed the 12 feet. So, and I don't, I'm not sure if there's any that would fall out of that, but we want to make sure they're held to that 12 foot in height when they're that close to the public street.
Any questions of Eric?
I guess I would point out that's a little different too than the freestanding, which would say 8 feet. Only 8 feet or less could be within 25 feet. So that's a little bit of a shift as well.
Is there a proposed amendment changing quantity, location, or height? Or are we
Yes.
strictly, it is?
Yes.
Can you help me understand that?
It's actually reducing height in many cases. And I'm going to let Pat
Okay,
lay that out for you, but
Okay.
the answer to that is yes. And there's a few that are getting added that aren't there currently, some that are being removed as well. So then there's actually probably a net decrease in the total amount of signs. The sign areas are also being decreased as well. So
maybe Pat will have the previous site plan, that'd be great. Awesome.
well, I think Pat's got it set up for kind of a nice comparison if you want to wait for that.
Perfect.
Okay.
He's done a lot of hard work on this, I can tell you that.
All right, shall we have the applicant come up?
Sure.
Good evening. I'm Pat Dunn with RDG Planning and Design. I'm representing Mercy One. With me tonight is Sandy Swanson, Vice President of Planning and Business Development. And so, yeah, we're here tonight to talk about one topic. And if it's acceptable, I've got some drawings to share that hopefully will clarify some things. So I'll
Just go ahead and move those and land those down on the end.
I guess
I'll zoom in if you move to.
Okay, thanks. As Eric said, Mercy One is in the process of rebranding all of their facilities throughout a large network, and this being one of the obviously a significant facility. Perhaps worth mentioning is that this signage system has been designed and is already being implemented in various locations throughout the state currently, including some of the signs that are being proposed as a part of this amendment. So that's one factor. I think it's probably worth starting on the left side. If you could zoom in, Eric, on the left side of this drawing. Yeah. So if we start on the left side and just give you a sense of the existing signs, so there's on the left-hand side of this particular identification sign is on site at various locations up to 15 feet tall by 8 feet wide. And then there's also directional signs throughout the campus that are up to 8 feet tall and 7 feet wide. Now in 2016, the last PUD amendment that happened as a part of this campus, what's shown here in the center is currently approved. And on the left is the identification signs, the type 2 identification signs. Those are currently approved at up to 17 feet tall by 8 feet wide. And there is actually 8 locations that are currently approved within the current PUD amended in 2016. In addition to that, there's several locations for smaller directional type 3 signs that are post and panel signs throughout the campus that are up to 8 feet tall and 7 feet wide. Again, all of that is currently approved, and Mercy One could move forward with those signs if they were given the current approval. All that said, Mercy One has gone through a process of evaluating all of that and has come to the conclusion that many of those signs, or almost all of them, can be much smaller than the currently approved sign, worth mentioning perhaps in the context of the overall system. So on the right-hand side, what's shown here is what's being requested currently. On the left-hand side, these 2 signs represent a 12-foot tall and an 8-foot tall identification sign. There is proposed to be 3 locations of the 12-foot tall and 5 locations of the 8-foot tall. And again, those 5 and 3 are currently approved at up to 17-foot tall. So you can see on the top there the percent reduction from 56% even down to 25% of what's currently approved. So there's been a significant gesture as a part of this overall system to bring down the size of these signs from what's currently approved. In fact, if you were to calculate the total square footage of the identification signs currently approved, it's over 1,000 square feet is currently approved. What's being proposed as a part of this project and this current amendment is under 400 square feet. So that gives you an order of magnitude of thoughtful, purposeful sign square footage reduction as a part of this project. The other component of this that we wanted to mention was just simply the design of the sign itself. Now, Eric mentioned that the lower portion of this sign technically does not meet the requirements for a contiguous base, opaque base. That said, it's our opinion that the intent of well, I guess this gives you a sense. This is the one location of an existing sign with the existing base being, in this case, cast in place concrete. What's being proposed here on that same location is represented here with a design concept. From our perspective, the lower portion of this sign, and for all intents and purposes, with some plant material that is proposed at the base of all these signs, the space below this sign will be, in most cases, not visible and not a void. so that the sign will appear to come all the way down to the ground. I guess the other component that we wanted to mention is that the sign design that you see is actually a very purposeful sign design, that including the lower portion of the sign base. And it's part of the overall brand. As you can imagine, the thought and the time that's been put into this particular brand, including the shape, the materials, the kind of interaction of different shapes and colors throughout this, that it's not just this particular sign, but it ripples into so much of their branding throughout their entire system. And the sign has been designed with different shapes and architectural elements to reflect the logo and the colors of the system. And it's intended to act independently of each facility. So if you can imagine this sign being placed throughout Iowa at a wide variety of facilities, it is not intended to tie in and match any kind of specific architectural element on one facility. It's really intended to be a standalone, independent element that has a signature regardless of what facility you visit. So all that said, the Mercy One is in agreement with one of the two staff recommendations. The second recommendation of the limit of 12 feet in overall height, Mercy One is in agreement with and will make those revisions to the drawings. The first staff recommendation, we respectfully ask that you reconsider that, given the overall system design itself, and given the fact that Mercy has gone to great lengths to reduce the overall square footage of signage for this entire campus by over 40%. That's a very thoughtful gesture to try to work with the overall system, work with the city's requirements, et cetera. So with that, we would again request approval and reconsidering and the elimination of the staff recommendation number 1. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Greg?
So question I have is, of all the signs on the site plan, how many are in beds like this with landscaping? How many are in grass areas approximately? And how many might be on a sidewalk or on concrete? Give me a sense of their settings.
Sure, the vast majority are in landscaped areas.
And are
With the
they
ability-
shrubbery areas or
With
grass?
with the ability to have plant material at their base.
So some of them are not. You said vast majority. And what would those be in, the ones that are not, the vast majority?
There are some that would be directly adjacent a sidewalk, that perhaps on one side you might have limits of what you could do with plant material on one side. Like, I think none of them have pavement on both sides. So there would be some isolated situations on one side of a sign that you might not be able to have plant material completely surrounding it.
I mean, I commend the design. I think it's elegant. I think it's nice. I think it's awesome that it's a brand. But that would be the only concern for me, would just be that durability. You know, whether it's a bicycle tire or snow shovel or whatever it is, that would be my only concern. But I do think it's a beautiful design.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Will?
Your Mercy One has obviously done a lot of research and thought in terms of design and function as far as these signs are concerned. I'm very impressed by that. And I also salute you for reducing the number of signs on the property. My question is a generic one. You've reduced the size of these signs, and obviously in your research you've done that because you had discovered that in a design way, in a smaller space, you can convey better information quicker to the public. Is that true?
I cannot represent the design, the full design team for these signs. My role has been primarily with regard to their location and meeting the requirements of the PUD. So I guess I can't speak directly to that.
I appreciate that. My comment is that, that Mercy One has come up with a plan in terms of design that to me makes better sense, both in terms of wayfinding and also in sort of an anti-clutter campaign. And I want to compliment Mercy One for doing that because, at least in my impression, signage is one of these things that is a important aspect for business, but it's also important to keep it in visual control. I'm afraid sometimes we get out of control. So thank you for Mercy for your action.
Thanks, Pat. I guess just an answer, I'm Sandy Swanson from Mercy One. And just an answer to your specific question or an affirmation of that, I was involved in the design process, and you are absolutely right. The intent is to, we have discovered through the use of font and color that you can improve wayfinding on our campus, and that really is the primary purpose of this. Additionally, these signs will be tied across all of our facilities, so it is the hope that someone who visits a clinic, let's say in Newton, sees the same sign, design, and effect and wayfinding tools that they find when they come to the hospital, so that it speeds up how quickly someone can find their way and draw comfort as they arrive at the right place. So, thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the commission? Okay, anyone else who wants to speak in favor of this item? Anyone who wants to speak in opposition of this item? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Discussion from the commission? Thoughts, ideas, motions, comments?
If you're interested, I'll throw out a motion, see where it goes. I think what I would propose is that my motion would be to approve this with the following modification to number 1, that at the end of the sentence, that you basically say, or provide shrubbery, that's the right term. Mr. Douglas will probably correct me. Provide shrubbery on all sides of the sign base for protection. So in other words, that would give them the choice that if they can't do that, they need to come up with a durable base. But if they can, then they could go either way. And then to keep number 2 as well.
Okay, that's a motion.
Is Pat okay with that?
All right, so the motion is, as stated in number 1, and then entire width of the sign face or provide shrubbery on both sides of the base.
Yeah, all sides. Pat, do you think that could make sense, that you have an or?
If I understand correctly, recommendation number 1 stays exactly the same, and then there's or
Provide
shrubbery on all sides. So either provide a durable base or shrubbery on all sides. So if I understood you right, your vast majority would be fine as you'd like them, and then there'd be a few that either you modify the hardscape or you adjust the base or you do something.
would, I guess the plant material,
As approved
just
by the
to make
planning
sure there's
director.
clarity, plant material can be a variety of things.
As approved by the planning director.
Pardon me?
As approved by the planning director would be what I would say.
So shrubs, as you should in
Shrubbery.
the drawing.
Okay, so
think
we have a
so.
motion.
Best compromise
I
option.
appreciate that.
Okay, we have a motion. Any discussion on that?
Greg,
Maybe.
it seems, my personal opinion would be just to strike out number 1, frankly. I'm wondering, would you accept a friendly
Oh, okay.
amendment?
I appreciate it, but no, I'd like to see where the motion goes. I'm just interested in the durability of the base, and I think there's just a few of them. Hopefully they can adjust a sidewalk or something. I don't know. I'm open to discussion, but I just want durable signs. They're beautiful.
If I, from a durability, it's in Mercy One's best interest to maintain the durability of the signs too, so they.
Sure.
So I guess from that perspective, if the city is worried about a sign being damaged and looking bad, it would be, I don't believe that that's in Mercy One's best interest either to have that happen. So I don't know, I'm trying to understand that perspective. Right.
I appreciate that. It's probably true for every person that has a sign, but I don't know.
Okay,
I'm open
discussion
for
on the
discussion.
motion?
Yeah. Any thoughts?
I have a question about that. So if that would apply to the smaller signs as well, such as the 4-foot tall sign, I'm just curious on, I feel like that would have to be adjusted in form because at such a small height, I would assume that any shrubbery would potentially block the wayfinding on the sign. So I guess I'm curious to know a little bit more detail about what signs we'd be looking at that wouldn't have the shrubbery that's already in place or already planned.
Good question. You're getting into some of the subtleties of the freestanding signs. There's two variations. There's an identification sign, and then there's a directional sign. The directional signs are really more of the smaller existing post and panel kind of system that doesn't have any contiguous base to start off with. Now,
Okay, so
that does need
these
to be
staff
clarified.
recommendations are not applying to the,
Well, the way that it states right now, if I understand correctly, staff does want everything to have a base, even though they don't currently as a part of our system.
okay.
And so if by striking that entire recommendation, then we can simply keep it as presented. But if you're not going to strike that first recommendation, then we're going to need to work with staff to subtly, differentiate those two signs and talk about just the signs that are up around the perimeter, the larger identification signs. So we continue to request, I guess, the elimination of staff recommendation number 1.
Okay, well, we do have a motion, so we can choose to act on that and see how that goes. So, again, the motion adds or provide landscaping on both sides of the base. So, in favor, raise your right hand.
Okay with it.
Sleeping there.
Opposed? Abstentions? Oh, we do have two abstentions in the back, that's right. Yes, I see you back there. All right, so another motion?
Madam Chair, I move the staff recommendation, but striking number 1.
Okay, it's been moved. Strike number 1, the item number 1. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. This has been, it's been moved and passed that item number 1 will be struck, and we'll leave item number 2. And we trust that you're going to protect your brand and preserve your signs, and thank you very much.
I like this.
Yeah, I do too. Get back, get back.
We still have 3 things to do.
All right, thank you very much. We are now ready for item number 5. That's the request 1219 34th Street for design guidelines for multiple family dwellings on property located at 1219 34th Street. Okay.
Consent agenda is going to discuss.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, item 5 is a request to convert the building at 1219 34th Street, and noting the typo that was already brought up in the name of the site plan in the staff report. Also should be 1219 34th Street. This property is located in the Drake neighborhood, west of the campus, just north of University on 34th Street. So if this is University Avenue, 34th Street. This is the campus cleaners here. The only commercial within the map there, but 34th Street is characterized with multiple family dwellings and fraternity and sorority houses affiliated with the Drake University organization. So 34th is sometimes, I think, referred to as that a row for that, for fraternity and sorority houses. This particular property is perhaps a little narrower than some of the others. The applicant is looking to convert this to 14 units and provide 20 parking spaces behind using the existing parking situation, paved areas, but making some modifications in order to facilitate that. Probably the easiest view in your packet to look at is the dimension plan. I know it's somewhat dark here, but here, back here, really coming off the drive approach into the site that exists, and then it would go parking in behind. The applicant did sort of adjustment to the relief of some of the setbacks and parking space provisions in order to get a most efficient parking layout for them to use this property to its most efficient. I think if they would have had to adhere to those things, they would have probably seen a significant reduction in the number of parking spaces. So they have already been through that process. Staff is recommending approval of this, subject to compliance with our administrative review comments on the site plan review. We do want to have a sidewalk in front of the entrance of the building to the public sidewalk, so they're showing some accessible sidewalk here to get to the entrance of the building off the drive aisle, but we do want to see something that gets pedestrian and other utilities along rear facades or facades that are internal to the site so that they aren't visible from public street views, basically. And that's the idea, is if we get an array of 14 electric meters, we don't want that obvious to the passerby on the public street. So, are there any questions at this time about the project? I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Questions for Eric? All right, seeing none. So the applicant is with us tonight, I believe. Yeah.
Good evening, Doug Mandernack, Civil Design Advantage, 3405 Southeast Crossroads Drive in Grimes. As Eric said, this is kind of an updated site plan where we do have the sidewalk to the public street that has that. The electric is placed underground along that sidewalk to get to the side there where it enters the house at this time. Really isn't a whole lot to add. We are replacing the paving for the driveway with concrete up to that point. The remainder of the existing asphalt will be overlaid to increase the durability of that portion there to make the site a lot more pleasing, because it is kind of broken up asphalt currently. So it'll be a much better condition. I guess with that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Questions? All right.
So you agree with all of the,
Yes, we agree with staff comments.
yeah.
It was a public, for the public. Anyone else wishing to comment or speak in favor of the project? All right, seeing none, I believe there was a concern. If you would please come up and state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Darren Sleister, and I own the property adjacent to this at 1215 34th Street. So that's why I wanted to come here tonight and just voice a concern. I preface my remarks with, I'd really like to see this property not be vacant. We've had some issues with vagrancies and windows getting broken out, and having a property next door that's kind of concerning to see, particularly on Greek Street. I'm supporting Drayton. So the concerns I have is the occupancy limits and the total number of people that would be here, that goes to how many cars are going to be. I know we said that we've talked about parking already. However, I was made aware as I researched this, I purchased this property about the same time that the current owner bought this and had gone through the adjustment process. So I was not made aware of any of that discussion that was going on. I just found out about this a few weeks ago when the letter showed up saying this is going to happen. Understanding he had originally asked for 20 units and went down to 14, there's an implicit intent in my mind that more people are going to be needed in this building than would just be maybe 2 per 14 units if you put 3 or 4 or 5, which I don't know if there's an occupancy limit when in Des Moines codes when it comes to this. That would imply there'd be a lot more than 20 cars on site. And being the owner of the property next door that has a juicy, really big parking lot that I currently don't have to do anything to patrol, it's my kids that are there. I'm not looking to make my job harder as a landlord by having to patrol that. So I'm not sure what mechanisms would be in place to provide assurances that parking won't spill over onto my side. I do have concerns with an increase in trash and other maintenance issues that would come to me by virtue of having a lot of people in a building that's twice the size of mine that will have less parking than I do. So that's my concern. The other way I could spin this around is to say, well, if this is the plan that's there is acceptable, at some point I have in the back of my mind to expand the property I have. It's the only one along Greek Street that it's an existing house that hasn't been built out back 50, 60, 70 feet. If those same standards would apply to me, that I could have a 6,000 square foot facility with 20 parking spots, that would be, I just want to make sure that the same standards would apply if we get down the road, if that makes sense.
So Darren, is yours a single family residence? Is that what you're telling us?
It's actually a fraternity, that's a non-recognized fraternity of church men. They go to campus fellowship together, and it's more along the lines of a boarding house from how the regulations would look at it. The guys live there. There's multiple people per room. There might be 2 to 4 or 5 depending on the size of the room that's there. So it's not a single family house. It is a rental property.
They're Drake students?
Pardon me?
They're Drake students?
Yes, current Drake students, or typically be graduates that maybe have gone on and they're starting pharmacy or going to law school or something.
I saw 6 cars in the parking lot on the aerial photo and thought it must be a little more than a single family.
Yep. It's
either
not
that or you're a collector. Cars.
No.
Michael?
You had raised a question about whether or not you could seek similar relief to the code.
Correct.
So yes, under the current code, you could go to the Board of Adjustment. We have a new zoning code that's going to be effective December 15th, 16th
Okay.
of this month. And under that code, the parking regulations are actually subject to staff review. So it would be a different process under the new code, but actually maybe a more convenient process potentially, because the parking ratios and the amount of parking and relief would be administrative review instead of going to the Board of Adjustment.
Okay, so it's not.
I can't guarantee it would be approved, but at least that's the process. So it is a different process, but it actually may be, I guess, an easier process than exists today.
Okay, fair enough. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. So the applicant then can maybe respond to some of those issues.
On the parking issue, we do have our 20 parking stalls here for the 14 units. I understand he's concerned about people parking on his property. Obviously, that wouldn't be something we would want either. So, understandably so, I guess there's really nothing we can do other than advise the residents here that they are to park in this lot and not in the adjacent properties. That's one thing we could offer on that.
All right.
How many residents do you anticipate having?
There's 14 units. Some of them are one bedroom and some of them are two bedrooms, so there could be more than that. But with the area, not all of them may or may not have a car. They use public transportation, or if their students could walk at that point.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. I'll close the public hearing. Oh, I'm sorry. Come on up. You may come. Yeah.
Hello, I'm John Schneller. I live in 5542 Little Leaf Trail, West Des Moines, but I'm the president of Trinity Lutheran Church, which is just behind. And I want to commend Darren. I want to agree with him. Trash is a problem. I'm sorry I don't have the skill set, but I got pictures of trash in that lot right now. And it appears that somebody's been sleeping in the lot at this time, because it looks like a sleeping bag there. And I'm over there a lot, and I have to pick up the trash. So I would hope that the building, if you get a chance to walk around it, it's a dump. Total dump. So anything that he would do would be an improvement. But our sump pump at our church runs, I'm going to say, about every 20 minutes. So I am concerned about the water from that parking lot. There is a parking lot there, but it's in disrepair. So that's one thing that maybe I can talk with the potential parking lot. And then we have had problems with some of the sorority people and fraternity people parking in our parking lot, and we're reluctant to do it, but we have had cars towed from that area, and we'll continue to do it. But usually, if you do about one a year, the word gets out. Let's see here. My question is, another question is, will the building be torn down that's there?
We'll let them come back and respond to your concerns, so if you just
Okay.
want to,
Okay.
keep going through them.
Well, that's, because, I mean,
That was it?
I would encourage, as I said, I don't be redundant, but how long will this take to get done also? So, I would encourage people to walk around that building. It's bad. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, you can come back and, first, maybe, is there anyone else that had some concerns? All right, now go ahead.
Yes, I agree. The building is in pretty bad shape and the parking lot is in bad shape. The intent is to repurpose the building. It will be kept in there, cleaned up, new materials put on, new windows. It'll look like a new building when it's done and greatly improve the area, I guess. And currently, there is a construction fence around it to try to keep out anybody in there for any damage. And there has been damage to windows that have to have been boarded up at this time. But, you know, it's been sitting empty for a while. Been trying to go through this process. As we get there, it'll all be cleaned up and a nice facility.
Could I ask a question? Can't remember if you're Doug or Darren.
I'm Doug.
I'm sorry, I had the D's right.
You bet.
Is there an elevation difference between your parking lot and the church parking lot?
They're relatively close.
Which is higher?
Ours is just a little bit higher. It kind of all goes that same direction, and we are not intending to increase any impervious area. What is there today is what we are having to put back.
Thank you.
And how long do you think this project will take?
Thank you.
It'll be done next year, hopefully within 8 to 9 months.
I think he asked about demolish. Did you ask about demolishing? Okay.
Yeah, it will not be demolished, and I guess we do have a trash enclosure, I guess, back in this area that's behind the building to house any of the trash from the facilities.
Any other questions from commission? All right, thank you. Now we'll close the public hearing. Eric, did you have something?
He has a question.
There was a couple questions about the occupancy.
Right.
So this will require rental certificates. The number of occupants per unit will be restricted by the size of the bedrooms. So in terms of concerns about the number of individuals that would live here, our rental code should manage that based on the size of the bedrooms and the size of the units. They will also, you know, all these things with regard to the upkeep of the pavement, upkeep of the trash enclosure will be monitored through the rental certificate process. So that's a little different perhaps than what's been going on with the property for the last few years. So.
Jack?
I'm just ready to make a motion.
Okay. We'll just double check. Anybody else have any questions? All right, we'll close the public hearing.
I've moved staff. I think it's going to improve the neighborhood, and I'm confident that zoning enforcement and building inspectors will see to it that things come through the chute the way they're supposed to.
All right, there's a motion on the floor to approve staff recommendation, which includes items 1 through 7. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, were there any objections? All right, thank you very much. We're now ready for the next public hearing, which is item number 8. This is a request from We Can Build It for review and approval of the PUD plan Franklin Jr.
And that's the build. It is probably the largest attachment in your packets. If you want to refer to that.
I called it We Can Read It.
Yeah. And I should point that out. So when you get your materials in the mail and there's something you need more detail with or explanation, don't hesitate to contact staff. I've started posting the PDFs on the website, so hopefully you can reference that as well. If you need to zoom in on the PDFs and things to maybe make it a little easier, because I do know this 11 by 17 format can be a little tough to read on occasion. So, the subject property is a property that was approved as a planned unit development at the corner of 48th Street and Franklin Avenue. So I know you're all generally familiar with that, going through that process recently. One of the stipulations when that plan was approved for the mixed-use redevelopment of the Franklin Junior High site was that this, any development plans would come back through the formal process of the Plan and Zoning Commission and the City Council. So now the developer and owner is seeking to move along with some of the renovations and to get building permits, and part of that is to also get approval of a development plan in that process, so they have submitted that at this time. Is there anyone that wants to see the photos of the project at this time? They're pretty familiar with, I'm trying to condense if I can for you. So I won't bother showing the photos, although I will show the map here. And that's the consent map too. So.
Did you say that was a consent map?
Yeah, that is the consent map. Development plans and site plans are a little different than when we do a rezoning. We send out a notice.
Right.
It does not contain a response card. If they want to respond, they need to come to the Permit and Development Center or contact us and have us send them the information on the plan before they can provide us with a response. So we did not get any responses.
Okay.
So they've sort of showed us, there's a couple things that are shown here. A lot of the discussion and reason for continuance was based on the layouts of the areas and making sure that they conformed with the use areas that were permitted with the original PUD approval.
Eric, could you zoom out?
Yeah.
Nothing showing them.
And they provided those on 2 levels, and I don't know, did you get color?
They were not.
So when staff did this, we did comparisons on those square footages and ensured that they matched up with what they were approved for the different uses. In particular, we wanted to make sure that the assembly areas and areas where there would be service of alcoholic beverages were matching up with that, so that those were not increased from what was presented through the zoning process. And so in that perspective, they were in conformance. I'm going to let them elaborate on anything specific if you have questions about the actual usages, in particular within the building. I think most of our concerns had to do more with the layout of the property.
So Eric, we've asked for those drawings that show the floor plans
Yes.
and uses to be incorporated into the document set.
Yep. So this was information they provided us after the initial submittal, and so we want to make sure that the development plan has those and records that so we can enforce over time if ownership changes or businesses change over time, we can adjust to that. So it's mainly, we want that as a control measure through the development plan process.
Eric, may I ask a question?
Yeah.
Could you show us where the area with alcoholic beverages would be?
So the assembly areas are the yellow areas. This is level 1. And again, I think that's probably a better question for them, but from the staff perspective, this is the large auditorium, which you're probably aware of. This is the smaller original school auditorium. And both of those would have concessions during event periods that would have the sale of alcohol. Then there's also rooms upstairs. These areas here that are above.
Can you move it up a little bit?
Can you see it?
Thank you.
So there's areas up here that would have potential assemblages, I should say. And then the other big one, the bar is also on the level 2 up here, and I believe that's called the library, but I'll let them speak to that, or the science room. I'm sorry, the science.
Eric, do you know which conditions they're not in favor of? Or?
Yeah, thank you.
So I'll finish answering that question first. This is the area that's the original cafeteria and kitchen, and that's going to be a restaurant area, and that will also serve the outside functions for.
And where's the Montessori classes?
I believe that's all up in this area.
Okay.
So it's away and separated from those alcohol uses, and the Montessori would not occur during event times as well. So the big thing, I don't know if they're not in agreement with anything, but some of the questions that staff had to review was the concerns about the sidewalk on 49th Street was in question. Our policy is that sidewalks be provided on all public streets. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see what I'm talking about. So 49th Street abuts on the west side of the site along there between the Franklin Court apartments on the west.
Eric,
Can you see where you see where I'm at? Okay. And then Tower Park to the north. Typically, the policy is that carry a sidewalk. The gaps when we get site plans, we get sidewalk improvements as part of that, as part of development plans. In this case, if the new sidewalk went along here, it would significantly reduce existing vegetation that we think provides a protection for the neighbors in the apartments from the parking activity of the overall site, and that the circulation for pedestrians is still adequately served getting to and from the park from Franklin and from the apartments. However, we would want to see internal circulation developed to make sure that people getting from the site to those places is adequate. So we are recommending, contrary to our typical traffic engineering requirement, that be built with a sidewalk. So that's one element that we're recommending in favor of that they propose.
so Eric, there's a sidewalk on the west side of the street.
Yes, there's a sidewalk. That was what I said. I said that they had already had the pedestrian connection on the west side of the street from the Franklin to the park. So, from staff's perspective, the planning staff's perspective, we're comfortable with their proposal in order to provide the protection that's of the existing landscaping to the apartments from the existing parking area and the parking area that will get used. So that's the one of the elements, and I'm also not sure where they're at with the utility poles and the recommendation with regard to the utility poles. So I'm going to let them speak to that.
Seems like it could.
But they've gotten all of these recommendations. I'll go over them. We do want them to comply with all administrative comments of the Permit and Development Center. We wanted to amend to include the submitted building floor plan information that Mike mentioned that was shown and incorporate that into the plan. We want provision of light pole and fixture detail on the development plan that illustrates compliance with the standards of the PUD, so the time is now to make those adjustments with the utility poles. Compliance with photometric standards, so we need to make sure that they've provided adequate photometric plan that complies with the PUD to protect the adjoining properties from the spill of light with that. Identification of all rooftop mechanical equipment, provision of screening that complies with the conceptual plan requirements to the satisfaction of the planning director. We want to make sure that any utility meters, transformers, and ground-mounted equipment and utilities are identified and then also placed in a location along the rear facades or facades internal to the site, again, to the satisfaction of the planning administrator. Again, the intention there is to make sure where they decide to locate those things is not visible from the street views. We do want to see a final landscaping plan for this project to the satisfaction of the planning administrator. We want to make sure there's more dense plantings along 49th Street given the proximity of those parking areas again to the residential dwellings to the west. We want to make sure that the finalized sidewalk and pedestrian routes are reviewed by the planning administrator, again, to ensure adequate site circulation for people using the site to get to the adjoining public sidewalk network. Any freestanding trash enclosure shall be enclosed with masonry walls and solid steel gates. And then the loading dock and trash enclosures along the south facade in this area shall be constructed with solid metal paneling and gates that are architecturally compatible with the development to the satisfaction of the planning administrator. So those are the main things. And it basically, most of these conditions are asking for some of the detail that so we can make those determinations that they do comply with the PUD.
Jack?
So usually when we get to the point where staff recommends approval with conditions, and you're presenting these to us,
yes,
you're able to tell us which of, in this instance, conditions 1 through 10 are at issue between planning staff and the...
I haven't been been presented with any issues. I've been asked, is there concerns that have been brought to us that they need to respond to, like from neighbors, and that hasn't necessarily occurred. The only real issue I think that's been of discussion since the staff review has been made is getting the information on the usages within the building to make sure they're in alignment, and then the sidewalk consideration.
So really, we need to let you sit down and the applicant come up and tell
Yes.
us what they object to.
Yes, and I'm not sure they, I haven't heard of any necessarily
Okay.
any objections.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so please step forward, state your name.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Brett Douglas, Genus Landscape Architects. I will say the applicant is in agreement with all the items with the conditions noted. With one exception, I would like clarification on the comment made by Eric regarding the overhead utility lines.
Which number was that?
Yeah.
6, I think.
6?
So in general, on large sites and
Yeah.
throughout the city, the site plan regulations seek to have utilities placed underground when they're providing new services or when they're making enough of an investment to upgrade the building. So the demonstration there, if you look in the criteria for the site plan regulations, is that developers shall do that to the extent feasible. So if it's not feasible, it's up to them to demonstrate the feasibility so that the commission can make a decision. If it goes beyond that, they would appeal that to the city council. This is already going to go to the city council, so you're at this point as a commission making a recommendation.
So is there some mention of overhead lines in 1 through 10, Eric?
No,
Well,
there's not in here, right, that I'm seeing in the condition.
Yeah. Is that the clarification?
some of that is just to get the details, so we're not even certain about what's presented, but
Says it identified.
number 6 that Brett mentioned is about the placement of those
Right.
meters, equipment, and transformers and things in a location where they're not visible from the street. So that would probably typically be like a transformer for an underground placement of a service, or the metering, if they're metering different tenants or something around the building, making sure that that's in a discrete location. So I'm not sure this is really about the lines themselves, but
So is there an overhead line, I guess is what we're after here. So,
I can't actually, yeah, okay.
We are in agreement to screening any utilities that we would add above grade. There are overhead lines around the project. Our understanding and request from the city is that the overhead lines would not be required to be buried in the public right-of-way. However, any secondary lines from power poles to the building would be buried, and we're in agreement with that.
Did you? No, okay.
So are we talking about overhead lines along Franklin Avenue? Is that what we're talking about, Mike?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's-
I mean, I
there's
can
no
see the
overhead
poles.
line. The overhead lines on the street right away would not have to be undergrounded, but any service lines into the building would be undergrounded.
Correct.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're in agreement with,
We are.
I just wanted clarification,
Okay.
that's what
All
I
right.
understood, yeah.
okay.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that also wishes to speak in favor of the project? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who has concerns or objections? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and...
I'll move staff.
All right, thank you, Jan. All those in favor of the staff recommendations for item number 8, which includes conditions 1 through 10, please signify by raising your hand. Okay. Thank you very much.
As somebody familiar with Franklin Junior High School for decades, I'm glad this is coming along. It's going to be a nice addition to the neighborhood.
And you said decades, I'll just say as someone for a few years familiar with Franklin Junior High. We're now ready for our final item tonight, which is item number 9. Let Eric get his. Are we still okay with the quorum? Yeah. Well, I guess while we're waiting, we can, there's one item for staff, commission tonight, and that is to be thinking of who wants to be on the nominating committee for officers for next year. It's hard to believe the year's coming to a close. So if you're interested in being on the nominating committee again, or newly want to be thinking of that, and we will appoint those next meeting, right?
I'm sure we'll find out.
Again, I won't show the photos unless you're going to request to see something specific. Staff had determined this was eligible to be considered for the consent, but I think there's some individuals that want to speak to this. The applicant is in agreement with the items on the staff report, which are on pages 12 and 13. One thing you should note that yesterday the Zoning Board of Adjustment approved relief for the number of fueling locations to increase that by 2. NPC generally caps that at 6 fueling locations. They're proposing 8. They were granted 2. They were also granted a conditional use permit for the sale of alcoholic liquor at this location, and along with that, a separation from the Trinity Church to the northwest. So there was there was that objection to that, but the board did grant the variance to that separation as well. So that's all considered part of the use that's been approved for this site, along with the zoning to NPC recently by the city council. So you're essentially now only considering the site plan itself.
So Eric, they're
Yes.
putting the building out at the street like we've asked them to.
Yep.
And
Yeah, they've generally looked at this under the lens of our approved ordinance that's going to go into effect in addition to kind of the current design guidelines for convenience stores that are laid out in the staff report. But they've gone with the recommendation to put the building at the street corner and have access to university, to the store, as well as internally to the site towards the pumps. They're providing a strong buffer on the south against the residential that would be to the south. They're pushing driveways away from the corner, which is going to improve that location as well. Significantly landscaping the site, as you can see, but also addressing the pedestrian elements. One of the things you'll see in this was they did not propose brick wrapped columns, which was unusual because on most of their previous stores that the city's reviewed, they've done that. They're in agreement with that. That was not with what they presented or submitted, but staff is recommending that they provide those brick columns. So they would need to provide us an elevation of the canopy that would show that.
So Eric, they've stated they agreed to all the conditions in the staff report?
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, maybe if we hear what the opposition's concerns are, and then maybe you could come back up and answer any questions.
I'm not aware that we got any opposition.
They're here. They're present.
I'm just saying, we did not receive any.
Right, for the consent map, okay.
So
Thank
that
you.
was a little bit of a surprise that we had some concern, but.
That's why we have public
Yeah,
hearings.
again, the notice invites them to visit with staff ahead of the meeting, but that doesn't always happen.
Yeah, that's why we have public hearings.
Yep.
All right, any other questions for Eric? Seeing none, is the applicant here to share their?
Good evening, Keith Wagon with CDA 3405 Southeast Crossroads Drive, Grimes. Here tonight on behalf of Come and Go and also with Dan Garneau of Come and Go. Just to reiterate what Eric said, we are in agreement with staff recommendations and the conditions suggested in the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak in favor of the project? Seeing none, I believe we have some concerns about the project. If you'd like to step forward. Yeah, we come up here and state your name and address and then sign the sheet.
Hi, my name is Omar Habib, and I live at the 1130 31st Street, residence across from Come and Go.
You can point on the map if you want to.
This residence.
Okay, we still.
Move your head. There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be this resident.
Okay.
If you guys can see that right there.
Yes.
And my father owns that resident right there, and we had no idea about this until recently. So we expressed a lot of concerns, which is why we came to the public hearing. And many of the concerns we have are going to be about the privacy, safety, and about a lot of it's going to be about the lighting and the demolition of the unit next to us as well. So we haven't been expressed a lot of like the plans for it, which is kind of concerning because we're right next to them. And a lot of those concerns are going to be because of our way of life. Is it going to change from this experience? And like the lighting is going to keep us up because this is a 24/7 location, 24-hour location. And the noise in general is going to be increased because it's going to be more customers going to this location. And another concern we have also is our privacy. A lot of people from Come and Go, we have a camera around the house, and we notice a lot of people from Come and Go cross our yard and to get to all around it. And that's one of the concerns we had, and it being right next to us versus the buffer of the big apartment, very concerning to us in that aspect. And currently, the apartment next to us is on an elevated surface. And if they break that down and demolish it, it's going to be on a level surface to our residents. And from that, it's going to expose us to a lot more like issues with a gas station that you would assume. So.
Okay. Any questions? Did you have some comments, sir?
Yeah, my name is Alawi Habib. I'm his older brother, and I got the rest of my brothers there and my dad sitting there. And we lived around this area for the past over 20 years, and we love the area. And my dad loves this house where we live right now. And you see this house, if you come from here, there's a lot of like Lutheran service around this area, so there's already access. There's people go through here, and they come from this front here. There's already a lot of traffic going across this area. We even put like a private property, like no trespassing, and we put cameras and everything. And recently, we got robbed a couple of times, I think I got the police reports. So it's gonna just be like, I used to be a taxi driver, I work overnight and I see what's going on around this area. So right now, the safety we have from the come and go is the building sitting
Across from it.
yeah, pretty
The
much
apartment.
this building right here. So now if you move this building and the come and go moves very close to us, and then we feel like there will be no privacy, no safety, no nothing. We're just very concerned about how close the come and go is gonna be next to our house. So.
Do you have a question?
Well, I was wondering, the come and go is moving closer to university, isn't it?
The building is.
The building, yeah.
Yeah, right now, the building would be between the gas canopy and the residents to the south. But on the site plan, there's a 6-foot tall wood fence along the south lot line. And then the landscape buffer. So, and then that's just to the drive aisle into the site.
And currently, that come and go is a hub for a lot of people just hang around there, that area right there. And even as if you're just going to get gas yourself, it's a little kind of creepy to be around there just because there's so many people around you and just hanging there, and it looks like a dangerous area to be around in general. And having that right next to our house is going to be opens up the possibility of a lot of things, and which is why we are very concerned with this.
Do you find people right now are hanging out behind the come and go? Are there people behind it, or are they all in the front?
Yeah, right now, so there's between the come and go and the apartment, there's like an elevated surface, and there's we call it a blockage because it's the back of the building. But if the building was facing that direction, we believe that it would open up the possibility of people getting out of there and coming closer to our location there.
All right.
And the fact that a lot of the vehicles are going to be walking through, being right next to that, it's going to be very loud. And since it's 24/7, there's going to be a lot of lighting coming from the vehicle, a lot of revving from the vehicles, and currently we can already hear a little bit of it and we're from an apartment down from that. So it being right next to us is going to be a lot worse, we believe, and we're concerned with a lot of those things.
Also, my mom's almost disabled, and we fixed the house so she can be comfortable in that house. So she already doesn't sleep enough at night. With all this gonna go, it's gonna be tough. So.
Yeah, and that's also the reason why we would rather stay at our own home right now, just because we have accommodated a lot of the house towards my mom. She had multiple strokes, 3 strokes right now. And so she has it hard to navigate around the house, and we have accommodated a lot of things, like made a bigger bathroom for her and everything, and did a lot of disability things for her so we can accommodate for her. So it would be very hard to move from this house right here.
All right, thank you very much. And did this gentleman want to? Did you want to speak, sir? Okay. Okay. So, applicant, your turn to maybe respond.
Keith Wagon with CDA. And, I hope that I caught all the concerns, but I had highlighted lighting, noise, safety, and privacy as primary, and I want to just kind of compare what's existing to what's proposed briefly and try to talk through some of those. So, I believe the property that these gentlemen are talking about, that their property is this one here. Our southern property line is this line right here, as our proposed site would be from University down to this property line. And the existing apartment building sits here, which is basically right on the property line. And then, as you can see, parking is immediately up to the property line to the west. So, as Eric had mentioned earlier, as part of the site design for this project, we've been working with staff over the course of the last year and a half to 2 years to anticipate how this site might lay out. And one of the first things we talked about and agreed upon was pushing that building up to the intersection. So from an infrastructure perspective, the building is significantly further away from where it exists today. In addition, we aren't proposing any parking down here along the south property line that would abut up to them. We have 18 feet between the southern property line of our site to the southern edge of the access drive. And then the parking that we are proposing is all up basically more toward University. So there's no parking along this end. It's simply access in and out. And then in addition to that, within the 18 feet, we are proposing fairly intense landscape buffer in addition to a screen fence.
Could you explain more about that buffering, please, so we could hear that?
But the buffering would be really just that there's 18 feet between the southern curb and the property line, and there would be coniferous and deciduous plantings. So we're talking trees that may range in height from 20 to 40 or 50 feet, depending on the exact species of maturity, but coniferous and deciduous plantings. In addition to that, a 6-foot screen fence too. So headlights shouldn't come through that. The height of the tree should help some of that visibility from any height levels that they're concerned about. And then also, in addition to that, all the proposed lighting would be downcast fixtures cut off at the property line, so we wouldn't have intense illumination levels at the property line. And again, our focal point is really kind of that northern half of the site. So our primary interest in illuminating the site would be up around the parking or closer to the store.
I mean, that's what I was going to say. Oh, excuse me. Well, I was just going to say you probably won't have a lot of lighting around that buffer area close to their place. No. Okay.
But that is the way the cars, if they're going on to 31st Street, they're going to be pulling out around there. I guess I'm trying to imagine, is a 6-foot, I mean, I get that you have the vegetation, and you say some of that's going to be coniferous?
Combination of coniferous and deciduous trees.
So,
plus the 6-foot solid fence.
Okay, so I guess I'm just trying to think, if people are pulling around that corner, in the winter time, you're feeling like those lights are going to be blocked from the windows?
We're talking a fence that's top 6 feet and solid fence, in addition to coniferous plantings, headlights being down at that 2-foot level. I feel like that's providing an adequate screen in that area.
Further talk about what you just brought up. If I'm reading the grading plan right, that edge of paving that's 18 feet away looks like it's 4 feet lower than the beginning of their property. Am I reading this correctly?
I think so. I'm going to pull it up just to confirm.
So if I'm understanding it right,
That's correct.
Okay, so if I'm understanding this right, not only is the paving 18 feet away, there's no parking, even if someone's pulling in with their headlights, it's 4 feet lower, plus there's trees, plus there's a sight fence.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fairly significant.
Yeah. That's exactly correct. And the entrance is really positioned where it is as a result of the placement of the building and also to get the vehicles a little further away from University. If you think about where the existing access is today, I mean, it is right at the intersection. So the University being here, this is the existing access today, and we're pushing it quite a bit further away. We should improve that as well.
Keith, the other thing I was trying to understand and help me confirm is lighting is a huge issue.
Right.
Because I know all these stations need really good lighting to keep an eye on people. And so I think I see, maybe point out for everyone, I think I see 4 light poles. I'm trying to figure out how far away or how close the light poles are to their property. And then also maybe explain how the canopy lights, just give us an understanding of lighting.
Sure. So this is an area light here, a light on a pole, as well as this light here and here. So these lights are cutoff type fixtures, so they're going to project, for example, this light pole here will project toward the building. So behind the pole itself would be fairly dark. So it's cutting off at the pole and shining forward, so that light won't come back. This pole here, for example, would throw light on the pavement here, but this pole is probably, if this is 18 feet, I think this drive itself is 40 feet. So we're looking at probably like 60 feet or so away from the property line there. And that's quite a distance for parking lot lighting. Canopy lighting really is meant simply to light just directly underneath the canopy. So those are soffit style fixtures that are up inside the bottom side of the canopy itself. They're not projecting, they're not on poles. They're literally underneath the bottom surface of the canopy, and they're just lighting that direct area right underneath the canopy where the vehicles will be fueling.
Eric, I don't see the lighting plan in this plan set. It's referenced in the staff report.
Yeah. Well, I can speak to it.
The photometric plan.
Yeah. So the requirement is that at the residential property lines, the light spill measured at the property line has to meet a half a foot candle or less. And then from street property lines, it's 2 foot candles. So, and then all the fixtures, the canopy fixtures have to be flush mounted. And then, so they provide us a photometric plan that basically shows that foot candle modeling based on the fixtures that they're providing throughout the entire property. And so we review that to make sure that the foot candles are at 1/2 at those residential property boundaries and 2 at any street boundaries or commercial boundaries. So they had to show.
Just like this, huh?
Sharp cutoff.
Speak of lighting.
Well, the flag looks nice.
It's home. Bring that with me. Yeah, I know.
Oh, sorry, one got it. Did one of you have another question while we're waiting? Okay, come on and ask. Well, they have another question.
Yeah, so far we're talking, another concern we have is the fact that this still wouldn't address the concern that a lot of people are going to get through our property to get to come and go from these residents over here. That still doesn't open up that still doesn't solve that problem right there. And another problem, a question we had is, how are they going to contain the demolition of that huge apartment building from our property? And during the construction, how are they going to limit the noise and stuff like that? And I forgot, I had another concern, but I forgot about it.
So if there's a 6-foot tall fence along the property between you and Come and Go, how do you suspect that people will cut through your property? You think they'll climb the fence, cut through your property? I would think they would go around maybe your property.
They would go around to the front of the Come and Go to get to the front.
Right, so then they go down the sidewalk or down the street, right?
Yeah, they would cut through our property to go to the sidewalk to get to Come and Go.
Show me what you mean. I'm not following.
I guess it would be from here. They would come through this side or this side, and then go through the sidewalk and head towards Come and Go that
Do you
way.
have a backyard fence or any side fences or anything?
So the way the back is designed with Lutheran Services, there's no way to enclose it really, because it's tied to Lutheran Services parking lot.
Oh.
So from our backyard is tied to Lutheran Services parking lot, so it wouldn't be possible to enclose that. So that's the situation.
There's a C-store there today, so people could cut across your property today to get to a sidewalk to go to the existing C-store?
Yeah, correct. But with this, there's also the option of people going from the other side too. But with this, it's gonna increase traffic to that Come and Go.
To the street.
We believe.
I would think it improved their property.
That's the Lutheran hospital. That's the Lutheran.
Yeah, that's the Lutheran Services right there, and that's our house. So it's fully open, and there's no way to enclose that. So.
Whether a new store was built or the existing one was there, is it any different?
What was that? Can you repeat
The
that?
condition that we have today versus if this new store was built, is it any worse or any better or any different? I think it's the same
We believe
problem.
it's going to be worse just because people aren't going to be going through the apartment as much as well. So they're just going to go in through our property. So it probably increase the traffic there. So
Dad, isn't that a historic apartment building that they want to tear down?
I guess I'm not seeing why there can't be a fence on the back of your property if cut-through traffic is an issue. It looks like...
yeah, there's parking spots behind our house for our parking spots. So
Could you
and
not
our
put a
garage is there
fence and a
too.
gate?
It would
along that
block
parking?
our exit from.
Not blocking your exit, but on the... Eric, could you pull up the site plan?
I don't see parking spots on your property.
They're on the
I do.
map.
Yeah, there's a three parking spots.
Do you have an easement to get to this parking
This is gone.
Yeah, there's 3 parking spots there.
So I guess the question is, could there not be a fence here?
Seems
that came
worse
around
right
the
now.
parking with a gate? that
Seems
would
almost
prevent
worse
people
like
from
right
going
now.
around?
They didn't get coming over by with fence.
Yeah.
That's true.
easement from the Lutheran?
There's a garage attached to
Maybe.
Okay, I think you need to have somebody come to the mic if you...
They're being good sons.
And another concern I had also was the vegetation. Who's going to be in charge of cleaning that on our side of the? If they're increasing all the vegetation around Come and Go, that's another concern as well. Who's
we'll
going to
have
be
them-
cleaning that up?
We'll have
All their vegetation's on their side of the fence.
I mean, aren't they going to be creating it around it? They're making tall trees, so the leaves are going to fall on our side as well. So. I mean, 20 to 40 feet trees, a 6-foot fence is going to stop those leaves from coming over. So.
Well.
Come and Go, yeah.
I guess Keith Wagon with CDA, to address the concern about people coming through their property. The fence that is being proposed is limited to the south property line, not along the west side. So that condition that he's referring to, people cutting through the apartments from the west side, remains unchanged. That'll be open. There's no fence proposed there. So I don't see that as changing and being any different, to be honest.
Is there an elevation change getting down to the parking lot?
From
as
Lutheran
proposed?
Services to the west?
From the west, right.
Probably a little bit, but nothing that somebody on foot couldn't traverse.
So can you make it inviting? put a step or something?
It looks like there's 4 feet or so of grade change from the west property line down to the parking lot or to the pavement.
So my question, we're looking for solutions. And I haven't heard solutions, but I've heard a lot of problems. But maybe we have a solution to one of these problems, and that is you make it inviting to come to your property from the west side with a stair or something like that.
I certainly understand where you're coming from, but I think that may be a conversation that needs to include Lutheran Services also, though.
Yeah,
I mean, that's,
maybe.
then we're, in effect, inviting people to come through their property and to come and go, and I'm not sure that, tell me if you disagree, but I think that's probably a conversation that would have to include them as well.
Great point.
I mean, I think that at the end of the day, we're not changing any circumstances where people would travel through there now. I think one thing that we had heard when we were initially working on this and coming up with a concept was maybe because of some of the conditions of the site, there were some nooks and crannies where some unwanted things were happening. And, if anything, this is really opening up that site where those nooks and crannies where people can hide and do whatever it is they do or come through there, those are going away. So I feel like the site in general is, it's significantly cleaned up with this plan, and a lot of those issues or concerns should go away with this, I think.
I just was going to ask if the commission had any more questions. Nope, seeing none. Okay. Last call, anybody else want to speak against the project? Okay, I'll close the public hearing.
I have a question, please, Madam Chair. I'm looking at the map of the canopies and the height of the canopies. As I read it, Eric, the gray part of the canopy, the roof itself is 17 feet and 6 inches, but with this additional piece that connects the two, it comes up to 21 feet. As I remember, we have a dimension of 18 feet, which is a standard for canopy heights. And just let me finish what I'd like to say, please. I think we're finding canopy creep throughout these convenience stores in terms of the canopy heights. And that's a concern for me, particularly in a situation like this. Drake University has put a lot of effort, time, and quite frankly, a lot of money into a beautiful entrance to the campus along 31st Street. And now we have something that's going to be, pretty good size in terms of height. And you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but this gray roof or structure that has been introduced to the design might or might not have been a way to break up the horizontal feel of the canopy. And the design itself, I think, is quite attractive in terms of the way it looks on paper. But my point is that 21 feet, when we do this, there's going to be a precedent someplace down the line, and there already is in another convenience store that we're looking at, that we're going to be, which they'll be saying, we want 21 feet. They got 21 feet here. Why can't we have 21 feet too? That's my point.
Okay, so the base of the canopy height here is actually a foot below at 17 feet or 17 and a half. It's actually below the 18. So we're open through that other design criteria to articulate, as you mentioned, the canopy height. So, if the entire thing was as the center part was, yeah, we would be raising that issue. But we're actually want to encourage the articulation of the design. So this piece is actually an improvement that we suggest that they do, because like you said, the length or the expanse of the length has to be mitigated as well. So that's one of the methods to do that. But if that entire thing was as high as this middle part, yeah, I think I would agree with you. But in this case, they're actually, I think, below it at 17. They're under the 18 for the base of the main part of the canopy, so it's just that piece that goes up. And so there's other ways to articulate when there's difference in grade, where they would just step it down and then they wouldn't need that center part to make it kind of different. But that's actually something we encourage through the design guidelines as well. So they might be working at each other a little bit. I think the other concern we would have is if the fascia was more than 3 feet, when it starts to get too tall from bottom to top of the fascia of the canopy itself. But they have a very low profile fascia, which is actually encouraged as well. So in this case, I think they've actually done what we've intended.
Let me ask this question then. When you negotiated this design with the client, did staff hold true to the 18-foot requirement?
We said we will review this under the design guidelines, yes. Yes, so, but if you read in the design guidelines, it also has asked for the articulation. So the only way to do the articulation is to actually raise a portion of that to make that work,
So this was a robust discussion?
Well, I don't think it was really that robust, because I think they were open to those suggestions. They are essentially doing what they also did along Keogh Way downtown, where again, a very long canopy, and we wanted that articulation in there, so.
Well, the standard was written 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, probably over 10 years ago. And so since that time, we've seen several of the C-stores do this, where they kind of do a tiered canopy. And it's actually been the preferred design that we've utilized on several gas stations. And so when we mentioned this to them, we suggested they break it up like this, and they didn't even bat an eye. They agreed to do it. They've done it on other projects, and it would be our preference.
All right, I'm glad to hear. When I meant robust, I meant that the staff was really holding true to the standard, willing to come up with a solution that was better design. But my point is really to hold true to that, because I think that canopy creep is it's something that's the developer wants. And it ends up being an advertisement that is detracting, I think, sometimes to the surroundings.
Well, one of the other things that encourages it to stay low is our lighting requirements. If they raise it up too high, it's tougher for them to meet those foot candle measurements. That means they have to have more fixtures directed down. So when the higher they raise the canopy, the harder it is to meet the lighting limitations. So I think, again, I appreciated that they went with a narrow profile on the fascia. In this case, I don't know how much you compared and contrasted with the other item that was on the agenda, but you'll see that one later. But we do. So as staff, we definitely hold to the standard.
Thank you.
Okay, Jan.
Yeah. Well, I just want to make a comment that thank you for raising your concerns. I heard them. I think others did too. I hope that, but after hearing this case, I feel like the applicant has kind of satisfied and addressed some of your concerns. I hope you feel that way too, because they've been very, I think, cooperative. I think the new situation seems better than the current situation. And I just wanted to let you know that I think it's great that you came and expressed your concerns. So.
One of the other things I did want to point out is the rezoning process notified that property, and the conditional use permit process recently also notified that property. And they would have also been included in the applicant's neighborhood meeting requirement invitation. So.
There we go. All right. Commission, what is your pleasure on this item? Jack, you have something in mind?
Well, I was thinking, short of not building the project, I don't think they're going to satisfy the adjacent landowners, so I'll move staff.
Also in favor of the staff recommendations for item number 9, which are items 1 through 13. Please signify by raising your hand. Got it? Thank you. So this item passes, but I will share that you do have an opportunity. When will this go to council? This doesn't go to council?
It's a site plan review.
Only? Okay.
Yeah, the council approved the zoning, and then this came back as the site plan, and this is the final stop process. Your next step is building permits.
Well, thank you very much, as Jan said, for coming and sharing your concerns. So that concludes our items tonight. Once again, if you're interested in being on the nominating committee, we have a month for that committee to meet. Is there anybody tonight that knows you want to be on the nominating committee?
I don't even know what that entails.
Oh, you'll love it. We'll put you on it.
There you go.
I'll join.
So we'll have Emily.
I'll join, I just don't know what the responsibilities are.
Anyone over here want to be on the nominating committee?
Dory's doing it too. Is Dory doing it? Dory, are you going to do it again?
I actually, I'll ask the attorney, but I actually think I will be on it this year because this will be my last year as chair. Regardless of what happens, I'll be last year as chair. So I assume that's okay if I'm on it, if I'm no longer an officer.
The nominating committee can be anyone.
Okay. So Emily, you and me, and then we just need one more person. Will, do you want to join us as the experienced person? Okay, thank you.
Guide me.
Any other business?
No, there's not a meeting with the city manager tomorrow. We have a training tomorrow in here over the lunch hour, and he'll be at that. And then he has another meeting he has to leave from here to go to. So.
Are we in adjournment, or did we just?
Yes, we're discussing that, so. In the meeting.